she has, you'll find out she's very young. Oh, no, you met her. She's just got that kind of, a lot of people on that board, like, I'm one of the younger ones. Some old names, the guy that owned Egyptian furniture. And, I think they get a little bit, her energy rubs them the wrong way. She does, and her husband is, just works for the state's attorney's office.
Mount Vernon?
Jackson.
Jackson County is Carbondale. It's in
No,
Murphy, and then Randolph County is in Mount Vernon.
Must be Randolph County, because he was like, what if I run for state's attorney? There's some people asking. She goes, well, first of all, you're the biggest introvert I know, and I would be stuck running with one over here. So, and the other thing is, if you had a dream of living in a firm, you should have never brought me over. He does like that. So,
Is he sitting over here? Or
did you get a chance to look at the grant application?
I did.
It's nothing challenging.
No, it's not, but I.
Recording in progress.
What's that?
I said I don't have any.
You don't want to be in the spotlight?
all my life I've dreamed of being in the spot.
Just put you on the end. So you kicked off on the 14th?
Well, yeah, I shouldn't be, I know, because I have.
Recording stopped.
It's a major case squad. I'm on the board, now I'm on the executive board.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Oh, you guys are doing the overnight one, right?
No, we already did that. I don't get on the executive board until Steve Evans is gone in December, but.
Oh, okay.
What Chris Hesse started was, he's got this civilian people. If they want to be on the board as a civilian supporter, kind of, it's $5,000 a year, and you have to guarantee it for 5 years. And he's already got it.
I'm not surprised by that.
So it's 50 grand a year in income coming into the thing for the next 5 years, guaranteed, right?
Per person.
Per person. So then I can just go 5 grand. There's 50, so there's 10 people easily. So it's like 11. So they're having a welcome cocktail reception for these
Where
guys
at?
over at the MAC West.
Okay.
So essentially, like, so kind of the thing is like, kind of like just having something informal when they come in. They can meet the board, they can meet some of the, the people like Jeff Connor or stuff like that. And just us to say thank you.
What happened to Ray Johnson's, Gary O'Neill? I know when I was going off board, he had some health issues and wasn't really attending any of the meetings anymore. He was on the bank.
Oh, yeah, we got rid of their bank.
Well, I'm wondering if he's still alive or something happened with his health.
But that bank, yeah. We are no longer in that bank. We moved everything away from that bank.
So I wonder. Okay. He was a nice guy, but he was he would go to the chop house in Clayton, and he knew everybody there. We took Wesley down. Couple of days
Hi, Jim.
when Wesley won. He was so rude. One of his bodyguards, whatever drivers or whatever, ordered a whole second meal to take home, and these meals were running at probably $100 a piece.
So we're having this thing in MAC West. I guess it's just a couple hours. Kind of like, oh, thank you. This is what we do. Jeff Connor will probably do a little presentation about the case squad and stuff like that. Just a little wine and dining kind of thing, Well, initially they told us all to show up at Class A. And I guess, and I'm like, Class A, so that's interesting. I'm like, okay, I guess.
No.
No, he's not.
You are, you do, and, okay. Who, did you go last year? How was it?
What's up?
Was it?
You have a good time.
What's so
What
was it?
happened? How's that work out? What happened?
Was he at the?
Worked it all out, huh?
Half the time. It's just- Why are you sitting here next to me? It's time for our 6-month one-on-one meetings. Take some time in the next week or so. Oh, yeah. No, we came in for you.
Like for instance, I think yours from ACH.
What?
Your reimbursement.
What's it?
Oh, automatically direct deposit.
Oh, that's what I wanted,
Yeah, that's.
but
how-
I didn't know if you could do that. Oh, that's
Right,
perfect.
because you're set up in the system.
No,
and
that's
everything.
just about the food. I didn't put in for any food reimbursements. I just, basic. Perfect.
On Friday, I played except 6:30 p.m. Going to the Elizabeth. But other than that, they did not have any meetings on 4 o'clock. That's what night we got time.
So does he have free Wi-Fi there? I'll bring my iPad if I need to. It won't be smart. So it's like his other driving range.
He's got 4 bays there. The one month's running. He said, oh, yeah, this will be fun. We can always change money all at the same time.
We probably could have found enough to play a second round. Or we could three don't work. Whatever.
What about the house?
So it's to be expected.
Yeah, I think it makes it.
So like, what is he, what was the whole thing he was talking about down your honor system?
No wonder it's a cool. I think I just sent the invitation. Register, I'm not sure. Okay, so anything else? We're gonna play around and charges at the time. It's also go to lunch.
That's a little bit like that, man.
Yeah, it's actually like that. But at least it does. So I would say, I'm gonna take a drink. We're gonna cup or something. We have one beer. Play some sports. Just wine. It was like $580. So before we threw, it was shot.
Was it the same system?
Different system. The system was fine. But the course was fictitious course and. Because they got a guy running the league.
Hey, Jim, are we?
Put this thing together. I think Mike's like in charge of the whole thing, but also in charge of our team, because we are the league. So we did, what was I gonna say? It was first the guy that sold it in.
I was surprised when you found out.
But it's this course. It's hard. I started reading the whole side, I started.
Hello.
You're gonna have fun.
Like there's any question? I know they need to try out.
You're working in,
Mike's son, Edwin.
I'm
So he's
typically
years, he feels pretty confident,
off
Ryan, he's
at
he
5:30.
wants to do it too.
I know Mike well enough to know that he would just not say anything. If there was a change.
But the work that we did this weekend, we'll this first step.
Hayden Younger were that way.
Okay.
They were both, and Hayden's now at AAA in the Blue Jays organization.
Oh, wow.
And he's slotted to make the major league club this year, this coming year.
That's cool.
But they were neck and neck. Eli was one minute. But that was them. It's pretty funny. Less than 2 weeks. The 8th, every Friday. So 2 weeks from this past Friday. She's, we love her. We absolutely love her. Becoming Bridezilla. She is becoming Bridezilla. Yeah.
Hopefully once it's
Yeah,
over,
that'd be
she's,
fine.
Yeah.
5 different directions.
I'm boycotting.
you looking for dates?
I'm on station dates, trolling for meeting dates.
Okay.
I'm boycotting. I need to read it. I want an extra day of PTO or something before I need it. Those are my demands. Can we do that?
Trying to see what my new.
Can we unionize?
Yes, the governing body.
Let's see, what do we got here? How about the second Tuesday of next week? There is no second Tuesday. How about, Friday? The first, is that this Friday?
I was right there, early call in the heartbeat.
Good. I have some kind of hair appointment at 4:15. How about 9 a.m.? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How long are you blocking off? About 8.
So, how far, right?
They currently, so the other salesperson for the same. 8 or 8:15.
8:15. That's right.
Too late to get back.
Well, sir, got to schedule.
So, do you, travel much, which is up there?
They come in at 12. Thank you, Steve. I should have went to you.
Anytime. Hello, Miss Stephanie.
I have been for a long time. I was born in Kansas. When the football Cardinals left St. Louis,
Yes.
I went back. I was a Chiefs fan early, and then became a Cardinals fan because they wanted to my town. And then when they left, it freaked me out to go. So I went in 1985. I went back. I know baseball, but knowing the Cardinals are winning. I lived through the 70s and the 90s. These years aren't that bad. They're at least close to 500. The 70s and the 90s were 100 years lost, 100 games lost. You can sit in if you can sit. I'll hide behind you. So she put her to sleep.
I got it under control.
Check, check, check. Yep, they're on. Check. Then stop touching it. Don't touch it.
Good evening. Welcome to the Finance and Administration meeting. This is the first of 3 meetings we have tonight. Two. It's going to feel like 3 because we're getting into finances, and that's my favorite. I'm Jessica Lotz. I'm the Vice Chair of the Finance and Administration Committee. It looks like we've got 2 items requiring action and a lot of items for discussion. So we're going to start with roll call, please.
Nathan Parchman. Jessica Lotz.
Here.
Stephanie Small here.
Here.
James Campbell.
Here.
Andrea Foney.
Here.
And Jim Blackburn.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Alrighty, thank you. Our first item requiring a vote is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was July 22nd. Is there a motion?
So moved?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty. The first item requiring council action is item 2.1, and this is whether or not to approve the budget to actual report for the period ending September 30th, 2024. Robin, would you like to take that for us?
Sure, thank you. This report, the last time we presented this at the Finance Committee was the June meeting, so this is not a new report. You guys have seen this over the years, but due to IDPH recommendation, we need to have council approval on this. So the attached report for your review is for the period May 1 through September 30th. Please keep in mind that there are some variances due to timing of journal entries. So expenses and revenues may have a difference versus your budget based on projects that have not been completed or started, or timing of receipts that haven't come in yet. Okay. So can we get a motion out of committee to move this report forward to the council on November 4th?
So moved?
Second.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council members not on the committee? Any questions from the public? No? All right, roll call.
Nathan Parchman. Jessica Lotz,
Yes.
Stephanie Small here,
Yes.
James Campbell,
Yes.
Andrea Foney,
Yes.
and Jim Blackburn.
Yes.
All righty, that passes. The second item requiring action tonight is 2.2, a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement. So I think, Grant, you're going to talk us through that?
Yes, I am. Thank you. So this is an annual renewal with our insurance for general liability and workers' compensation, which is Illinois Municipal League Risk Management. Date back a little over 2 years ago, we did go out for bids for all these services, and at that time, we did receive 4 quotes and 3 fulfilled the requirements. At that time, our previous carrier, ICRMT, bid was $857,000. CIRMA and IPRF were $909,000, and then our current vendor was the lowest bidder at the time at $672,000, so $672,000. And so we had good success with them in year 1. We are currently in year 2 of that contract, which had a rate freeze. Starting January 1, 2025 would be our 3rd year. We did not go out for a full RFP this year after receiving a renewal quote from IML RMA. Because that renewal quote was at the cost of $674,309, which year over year, it's about 0.20 or 0.2% increase. And staff felt very good with that renewal number. I wish I could get that personally. So just to explain how our general liability and workers' compensation works, it is a hybrid model. So in health insurance, this would be called a partially self-funded model. So we do participate and cooperate with RMA on some of those costs of coverage. And so it's a min-max scenario, and that requires an intergovernmental agreement with RMA. And so what we do essentially is we pay a premium at the minimum amount, which is 80% of what our premium coverage would be. And then as our claim data come in and mature, over 80%, if we reach up to that 100%, then we pay more into the fund up until a certain stop loss amount of 120% of that premium. The good news is we've had very good historical rates with RMA. And so the first year, which we are closing out now, we finished with $473,000 total incurred and damages. So we had really good percent paid on that. And so they will roll over some of that money then in future years to us as those claims mature and close off on the books. Obviously, we're now 10 months into year 2, and so those have a lot of time to mature, but right now we are less than 10% of that premium at this time. So we've made a lot of good changes with training and safety precautions, which has resulted in these good rate renewals and reduction in insurance costs. So I do need a motion to support this agreement with RMA for coverage year for calendar year 25 in the amount of $674,309.99.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions from the committee members about what we're voting on or questions regarding the policy?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do we have reinsurance involved in that when we meet specific and aggregate claim targets?
We do. We have reinsurance and stop loss amounts over the $100,000 or more.
Okay.
I will also add this, I did not put this in the agenda item, but RMA's deductible limits are much lower than what our previous carriers were. Our previous carrier, we've had a $5,000 and $10,000 deductible on damages. RMA is $500, so.
Wow.
Turn down the volume just a little bit.
Any questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Anybody online? Nope. All right. Well, first of all, kudos to the staff for training and staying ahead of the curve. This is something that without management can very easily get out of control, premiums on that. So with that, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Lotz,
Yes.
Small here,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Foney,
Yes.
Blackburn.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Grant. Those are all of the items that are requiring the council action tonight. We do have several items of business for discussion that we'll get into. We'll have a presentation from the staff, then the committee will be able to ask questions, then we'll go to the council, then we'll open it up to the public on each of these agenda items. So with that, Sandy, would you like to start? Oh, Grant 3.1?
Yes, thank you.
Capital Improvement Plan.
Yep, you're stuck with me for one more agenda item. I will introduce the capital improvement plan for the next 5 fiscal years. I do want to mention that 2 weeks ago at the Community Development Committee meeting and Public Safety, we did introduce their items. And so while I will do a general introduction of the entire CIP now, each department will continue to propose those. Public Works will be later tonight. Our IT staff, Dan Gentry and Tom Davis, are here if there are questions about IT-related capital items. And then Andrew will wrap up when he meets in 2 weeks. So once again, the CIP is available online, or it's also in the agenda and under board docs. It is all full built online. How this process works is starting in July of each year, we put out requests to each department on CIP items with the instructions, first off, what is a CIP item, a capital item, the thresholds on budget, and they do, most of them, these are all under GASB and our auditors, right, determine what is a capital improvement item. And so we do follow strict rules from those. And so each department looks through their needs for the next 5 years and projects on large items and large expenditures. This is not a wish list. This is a visioning and planning document. As you'll see in years 1 and 2, almost every item in there, we will be looking forward to move into the budget with appropriated costs. Nothing is official until it is approved by the City Council in the budget, but this is our planning document from a financial perspective. Projects in year 3 and 4, and specific, or especially out in year 5, are more visioning projects and long-term goals. While there may not be a funding source, but it is something we want to keep on the radar of the community and staff and the council. So jumping into the website, it is pretty friendly, user-friendly. We do have the next 5 years listed based on departments, based upon tabs that you can click on here, and then our 5 years with the end result on 5 at the end. The website also does have a video explaining what CIP and capital items are. There are other tabs called the Easy View, which does give you pictures and more specific information about each project in the plan. There is a dashboard that shows you funding 5 years by department. It shows you by source of funding, if it is identified or not. It shows you by year funded, and then we did list items in the strategic plan and the master plan with the projects, and we do list it as a criteria. And then whether it's a vehicle, public infrastructure, facility, equipment, or community space. Another new feature on this CIP item is it does show you an interactive map that you can click on, and you can click on specific items, and it will tell you what the item is. And then lastly, if you'd like to go back to previous plans, you can do that in the archive plans. We do have this on our website, and before we went to the online version, there were 2 or 3 years we did this in old paper form, and you can look at those as well. Any questions about the CIP in general before I start on administration projects? Okay. So I will present projects specifically for the administration department. A lot of those are budgeted, and these are repeat items. Most of these are considered programs from a budgeting standpoint, including facility and security camera systems, wayfinding, parking, signing programs, city beautification, and downtown streetscape improvements. Things that come and go, like the columbarium, you will see in the cemetery, you have $25,000 is usually a new area of niches. And then once we fill up enough niches, we will cover that with a patio to prevent all weather on the marble area. Reaching out into the later years, we have $2 million allocated at this time in the CIP for a bike trail along the CSX right-of-way. This is a project we still work on consistently with the railroads to see if they are willing to work with us to create a bike trail east to west along O'Fallon. And then the only new item you will see in administration this year is network connectivity for the downtown area. This will allow us to program the lights, potential speakers, and cameras in the downtown area to continue to grow amenities and services in that area. That concludes administration projects. Any questions?
And just to clarify, we do not have approval from CSX Railroad to put the trail there. It is, we've in discussion with them, but nothing definite yet.
That is correct. And then,
And just to reiterate on some of these, most of these projects, these are projects that over the years, like the council, but in coordination with input that we've received from residents via the master plan, different surveys we do throughout the year, we track trends. Are there themes that are coming up? Are there things that people seem to want? And then we plan ahead for how we can achieve those based on that feedback. So, I mean, I have a wish list, but it looks a lot different than that. So, any questions before we move on to IT? No? All right.
okay, so Dan Gentry, IT Director, will come up and introduce his items.
Hey, everyone. I hope this is emblematic of some sort of ideological divide amongst you guys. But
There's nobody in the middle.
so as Grant mentioned, most of our items are what we would call program items. They are essentially ongoing replacement programs. The ones that are most constant are things like desktop computers, laptops, some of our core network equipment and those types of things. And how we do this is we keep an inventory of our items, we estimate the value of cost, and we calculate a life cycle, and then we essentially divide it up accordingly, and we typically will add an inflationary factor. Fortunately, we didn't go with some of the COVID projected stuff, so it's actually, there are things that have gone up, but IT costs haven't gone up as much as we feared that they might. There are a few things that have changed. For a number of years, we were able to buy a lot of refurbished equipment, primarily for desktop computers. But as we're going into Windows 10 support waning and some issues we were having, we've kind of gone back to purchasing new computers. So if you see things like our desktop computer program cost increase, that's really the reason why, not because there's like a significant increase in inventory. The program area that varies from year to year a little bit more are things like our major server and networking components. So example, this year we're replacing our data center storage in this data center, which is our failover or emergency data center. 2 years from now, we'll do the same thing in, excuse me, in the public safety data center, or it's essentially, these are 5-year programmed items because the manufacturer stops supporting them at 5 years is kind of the industry norm for a lot of these. So what we've tried to do is that we've got some things that we've plugged in as new items that we've tried to offset around those types of things, because my goal is to have our capital costs as much as possible be constant from year to next, so that when we sit down at budget time, people aren't saying, why is your IT budget up 20% this year? But, and we set aside reserve money to help even that out too. So the 2 new items that we have in there this year, one is for next year, which is replacing the roof, windows, and fencing at the IT building. And the fencing, we've got chain link fence, and I know it's an industrial area, but the other fencing that has been added in the area per city requirement is more of a privacy fence type scenario, and we would like to do the same. The roof's about 20 years old, and the windows leak. So those are a rationale there. The project that we have in a couple years after that, one of the features is more functional and the other is more aesthetic. We have just one set of doors, and we have employees sitting starting 3 feet back from those doors, and it gets very hot when people come in the summer, and it gets very cold in the winter. But when the original roof was added on there, I say the original roof, the city purchased that building, it's a metal building, but we added a hip roof to the top because we couldn't figure out where the leaks were coming in, so we just put a whole nother roof on top. And when we did that, we added in a little kind of a covered walkway area. And the proposal would be to actually turn that into a breezeway with a second set of doors going in, and trying to maintain the original doors that are behind it. But there's concrete work, there's all sorts of other things that would have to take place. So we want to do that, and the other thing is to try and dress up the front of the building a little bit so that it doesn't look from the front or from the roadside as a metal building. So I guess without getting too far into the nitty-gritty, that's the summary of IT's capital budget request.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions from the committee? Council? Ross?
And do we have any off-site redundancy or backups or anything?
We do. So we have a lot of hosted platforms. We have not on purpose done a lot of our servers and things offsite because the cost is substantially more. We do back up all of our data, not only redundant internal, so the servers that run in our main data center are synchronized automatically and continuously to our emergency local data center here, and it's also simultaneously backed up in cloud in a, I'm trying to think of the word, but in an immutable backup form that is, well, geographically not here.
My point in asking was so people understood that sometimes you buy multiple sets so that
Correct.
if the building were to take a tornado hit, there's redundancy somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of timely because we were actually talking today about whether or not some projects that we were going to do were going to cause us to have to turn off our data center. So we have redundancy, but we've not paid for immediate redundancy. So if we were to have an emergency, our expectation, and I don't know that we've really vocalized this too much, we don't try and get not too public about stuff, but we're not expecting everything's coming on right away because we don't want to pay another $250,000 to $500,000 a year in IT budget so that you can have stuff switch over within a minute or two. And then there's systems that we do have that we purposely are not trying to fail over. So we're really trying to kind of go down the middle and say, okay, truly mission critical systems are things that we're going to try and put up in an emergency. And if it turned into a longer thing, then we'd have to adjust, but yes, we do. And I'm sorry, that was probably way more than you wanted.
Super most of it, but some other people might.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Any other questions? No? We're very fortunate for the talented staff we have in IT, so thank you for what you do and how you look into the future to make sure we stay functional.
When you have good people, it makes you look good, so.
Truth. Thank you. All righty. Anything else on the CIP?
Nope, that concludes our presentation today. Jeff Taylor will be later tonight with Public Works, which is a lot more fun than this one. And then Andrew will wrap it up on his committee meeting. I do just want to reiterate that this is not a wish list, and also that just because items are in the CIP doesn't mean necessarily they'll be done or in the budget. We take that year one and year two and really project out, and we try to get everything in the budget, but sometimes there are projects that just unfortunately are not able to be funded.
Sure. Thank you. All right, next on our discussion panel is that of the preliminary proposal for the 2024 property tax levy. So I'm going to let Sandy, who is our Director of Finance, lead us in that discussion.
Something got mixed up when Grant took it, that's why I
Dan,
don't
can you come back up
remember.
here? She's having computer problems.
So hold on. Okay. So tonight, we are going to talk about our favorite subject, the levy. So as you recall, this is something we do annually. We start the conversation here in October. And this is, as we all have decided, it makes no sense. We have to ask for money before we know how much, and then we don't even know about it until December, or until April. But what we're trying to do, let me start with a little presentation and slideshow from the beginning. All right, so we're going to start pretty basic. For some of you who may or may not know, new to the project process. So the levy is the amount of property taxes that we bring in, right? So this is the money when we levy. This is money then that the city receives. It's no more than what we can budget this year, but we don't receive it until next year. So it's kind of very confusing on how we do it. And the city's, this is not the right one. This is an old version, so take 10. Let's go into this, and we'll do this one. Let's try it again. Okay, this is better. So the city's portion.
I like that number better.
That is much better. Our city's portion makes up less than 8.4% of your total property tax bill. And a lot of times you hear people say, our property taxes are so high. Maybe not due to us. Ours is at 8.4% of your total bill. Keep in mind that we request a dollar amount, not a rate. And that's where people get confused. They think that we're the ones that set the rate. No, we set the dollar amount that we want. The big thing we want to make sure, the two things that we pay for public safety, EMS and fire, and pensions. Those are the only two items that we are putting our levy request in. It's not general fund operating. It is strictly public safety, which makes up EMS, fire, and pensions. If you remember, police is paid under the general fund. One thing I do want to stress that for some reason got missed is we want to focus strictly on the city's levy, right? The library board decides on their own levy. So the city is only ministerial in our approval. So the library board has their own board. They decide what their amount they need to operate, and then they present to us, they tell us this is the amount we want to levy. And therefore, the city has to approve it because it is requested by the library. But again, we're going to focus strictly on the city's portion. When we ask, people say, well, you always talk about the EAV. Well, what is the EAV? And so the EAV is that partial value of the property. In Illinois, it's 33.13% of its fair market value. This year, your EAV is proposed to be, this is per the county, they have given us an estimate. It's a very early estimate. Our estimate is $899 million. Compared to our final rate setting last year was $907 million. So it's less than where we ended last year. But again, as I said, these are very preliminary numbers. These numbers are constantly changing. So where we are today, if I check next week, those numbers are going to be different. So that's why it's very difficult when we go on this, but keep in mind, that's why we're looking at an amount. We don't say, well, our EAV is that, I want my rate to be this, so this is a dollar amount. No, we ask for the dollar amount, and then it works into what your rate will be. The other thing that this year is a township multiplier. So the multiplier reflects what our properties are actually selling in the township. So O'Fallon is made up of O'Fallon Township and Caseyville Township. I was talking with Jennifer Gomrick, our assessor. O'Fallon's multiplier for the township is 1.1211. And then the Caseyville one, estimated township multiplier is 1.118. So those are higher than we were last year. And again, this is because the homes in O'Fallon are selling at a higher rate than what's marked on your tax bill. So this is that multiplier that tries to equalize everything.
Can I offer something there? You can request, you can petition to not have the multiplier on your tax bill. That is a request that you would make with the state. They're the ones that determine that. But if you don't want the multiplier applied to your tax bill, you can go through the process of requesting that be removed.
Thank you. So I talk about the EAV constantly changing. This kind of shows you how that has changed from, when we started this process last year, October, the EAV was 840,000 or 840 million. In November, it went down to 838 million. Then in February, it went back up to 890 million. And then our final rate setting again ended at that 907 million. So I just want to stress that what numbers you see now, they are going to change. So it actually increased from 8% from the time we started to the time we end. Again, this is just kind of shows you how that EAV with the city has increased over the years. There's been approximately from 2017 to now about a 35% growth in our EAV. So this year's levy, we are requesting $5,927,000. Again, this money is strictly for public safety and pensions. This is not for operating in the general fund or anything else. This is a 4.19% increase. We're looking for an increase in all of the funds except a reduction in the IMRF. I put a small reduction, 50,000 to be exact, because of the fact that based on our balance, I want to try to keep our levy low. So because we have a cash balance or a reserve, I reduce the IMRF amount that we're required. This is the spreadsheet that you're all used to seeing. So this kind of shows all the information I was talking about. You can see where our final rate setting was a 907 million. The county estimate, so when they gave me their estimate on 10/17, it was 891 million. Due to the multiplier, since we have both townships, I average them. So that adds an additional 9.9 million to our EAV. Border review petitions. A lot of our commercial properties as well as residentials, they can file an appeal and go before the border review. And so those properties, those EAVs can be reduced. And so that's why our current projection is 899 million. Again, that we're expecting to change. One of the big changes from last year was an 18% increase in our disabled vet exemptions. So this has been an ongoing increase. Last year on 3/20, the disabled vet exemptions was 128 million. It is now up to 151 million. It now makes up 17% of our total residential EAV. So, oops. So this is where my request is showing. This column, the 500, 755, this total extension is where we were last year. We received 5,678,000. This year we're requesting based on needs. Again, I reduced IMRF. Our fire protection, we increased by 39,000. Fire pension, 52, 1.5 for police pension. Social Security, 1.5 1.2, and then ambulance, 1.1. These are funds, these are requests that, a lot of them we have no control. Police pension, fire pension, they tell us how much we need. IMRF, Social Security. So again, these are amounts that we need to have. Library, they are proposing, $67,000 increase from last year. Again, they're still reviewing it, so we don't have a final number from them yet. We talk about the disabled vet exemption. Again, we do believe that will increase. And most of them, every year they have to refile unless there's an exception. But, our thought is that hopefully at 151 million, that a lot of them are in by now. With that 18% increase from last year, again, we won't know. Again, it constantly changes. So normally at the end of March is kind of like when it ends, when we know what those numbers are. So one of the things that the state started was the Disabled Vet Exemption Relief Program. So with 151 million affecting our EAV, this is something that the state put in their budget last year. It provided relief to all the taxing bodies in St. Clair County. 3 counties were part of this program: St. Clair County, Rock Island, and Lake County. And there was a pilot program for 5 years, and they were to budget $15 million that the state put in their budget. And then there was a formula then based on all of the taxing bodies' loss of revenues, then a percentage was given to those municipalities or entities or taxing bodies to try to make them whole. Last year's was 50% of that calculation. So we did receive $272,000 from the state in that program, which we put away in reserves. So that money was there. The state FY25 budget, there is no allocation of that $15 million. So we do not know at this point whether or not the state is going to put $15 million in their next allocation in the budget so that all of these taxing entities can be made whole. So we are wondering or thinking, projecting, processing. The city received this $272,000 from the state, right? And so we did put it in the general reserves. We want to give it back to our residents, right, the taxpayers, because it was relief to them. But unfortunately, we have the uncertainty whether or not we will get money in next year's state budget. So what do we do now? How do we give back to our residents without hurting or jeopardizing the city going forward? So we have 3 different scenarios, and the one that we're talking about now is approve as we've done before, right? And that was requesting the $5,927,000 as we normally do, right? Knowing that that's the amount we need. Scenario 2 is what happened if the state says, yes, we're going to put that back in the budget because they'll be meeting again. So if the state says, yes, we're going to put that money in, when we receive the final tax valuation from the county, which again, it's towards the end of March, by then we should know, yes, they're going to do it, right? It'll be in the state budget, it'll be approved. If that is the case, then what we can do, we will abate that differential amount that we had talked about, which in this particular, let me go up to this one. This $248,000 is what I'm calling the differential, right? So I'm saying we will abate, and people are going to say, well, where's the $272,000? I'm just making it simple. It'll be the full $272,000, but for our purposes, the 248,000, we will say, county, reduce the amount we want by 248,000. So by doing so, that will reduce the amount we want, thereby decreasing the levy rate that it equates to. So it reduces that. That in turn is what will go back to the resident. So it will reduce that EAV rate, and that is what all of our taxpayers would be paying for. So that way, we are in turn giving that money back to the individual or to the resident, property owner. So then the question is, what happens if they don't? What happens if the state doesn't put it in? Well, what we want to do, again, we want to give it back to our residents. However, the problem is, when you do that, you have a problem with you're inflating, because again, there's what's called a truth in taxation. So anytime the amount that you're requesting in your levy increases more than 5%, that is called a truth in taxation requirement. So at that point, you then have to have a public hearing, you have to post everything in the newspaper, and then what it would do would drive our rate from what we want, our 4.19%, it would make then our levy request almost 10%, right? And so even though we're making them whole, we're going to pay for it the following year if we don't get that abatement back or the allocation from the state. So what we're suggesting, should the state not add it to their budget, then we would, in order to avoid that truth in taxation, where it would not cause this to happen, that we would abate $50,000 per year for the next 5 years. So it won't have a dramatic effect, and we would just spread it over so it would not inflate that tax levy.
And while she's doing that, I'll clarify a little bit about the potential for getting the relief program funded by the state. The General Assembly goes into veto session in November for 2 days a week for 2 weeks, and then there's also a lame duck session where often the General Assembly will meet in January, and we have been told that our legislators are going to attempt to get the relief program funded in either one of those sessions. So it's possible that it could still be funded in this year's budget, but we just don't know. And so that's why we felt that if there's still a possibility that it would be funded and we could then abate the full amount in this year's levy, we have the opportunity to finalize our levy request in March when we get the final EAV setting from the county. And if we know whether the money's coming from the state relief program, then we could make that adjustment then. And then by then, if we know that it isn't going to be funded, then we can also make decisions from there. So we have the opportunity to make a final decision on what we're going to do with it as long as we approve the full amount now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to show you what that means in numbers, just to give you a rough idea. So this one is if we were to abate the full amount that we had originally requested in this year, that $248,000. And again, those are numbers. So that would reduce the rate. So 1016, you can see the rate based on that $899 is 0.6597, and that's the amount that's based on your property taxes, right? And so that equates to approximately, for a $250,000 home, that your portion of the tax is about $549. If we did an abatement, again, of that $248,000, the rate drops to 0.6306, okay? That is about $24 that will go back to the taxpayer, not on their levy. So again, we're going to abate that $272,000. The taxpayer's going to get $24, part of that. And then you'll see, we're fine. So then we're going to request the 5625, similar to the previous year. We're not going to change anything. Well, what happens if we do that, and the state says, no, we're not going to give it to you anymore, and we've already abated it, what happens is that following year, we're now needing to make up what we're not going to get from the state. It jumps to where we'll have a 9.57% increase, which means that's where that truth in taxation comes in. And so then a resident now is paying $51 more. So it kind of just gives you an idea of, first we're talking $24 back to a resident doing this abatement of the money that we received in. If we don't do it, or if we do it and abate all of it now, then it's going to cost it's going to jump into that truth in taxation. So these are just kind of scenarios of what would happen should we run into it. As Walter said, so we have some options. We have time. This is the first time that it's being presented. The levy is due the the last Tuesday of December. So at my November meeting, we'll talk about it again, the November 25th. At that time, we'll have updated numbers from the county. So again, remember though, we're looking at amounts of need, not levy rate. And so that'll be November 25th. And then we'll decide and talk about it at the committee meeting, and then it'll go to council for their December meetings to approve. The beauty, again, of this is we can abate. We've never abated before. So I did contact the county, talked to Dina, and said, how do we do this? This is our situation. And she agreed this is the best way to do it, is to move forward, ask for the funds that you want, and then when they send us that final rate-setting EAV at the end of March, we should have it before we go to our March committee meeting. We can say, yes, the state put it in their budget, and we shall abate the money back to the county. All I do is send an email with our requirements and need, and it's done. If the state doesn't put it in the budget, again, we can talk about it in March, and then we can say, okay, yes, we want to abate the $50,000 over the 5 years, and then we're done. If we hear the state has decided to put it in, not a problem. That's where we do the 248. Next year, we'll do the same thing, because with us putting it in the reserve like we have, those funds, because again, we want to make sure, because they need that money. It's not like we're shorting them. That $272,000 then, so whatever that differential, for example, ambulance, $99,397 is the additional. Out of that 272 reserve, they'll get $99,000, and then Social Security will fund that fund. So they're made whole, and then the taxpayer is also getting that benefit. So that's where we are. That was a lot. Any additions? Questions?
Sandy, for the public, so to dumb this down, let's just say most of you have a budget that you keep. If you get a scratcher's ticket and win $200, you're not going to change your family's budget because you won $200. If you consistently can get that every time for a few years, then you can change your budget. But this is just like a cash infusion that we got with no guarantee that it's coming after. We hope that it does, but there's nothing that's in stone right now until they pass it. So we don't want to change our budget based on a cash infusion, but then if we do know that that's coming next year, we can abate that back. So it's kind of keeping things consistent. I hope maybe that made a little sense.
Did to me.
We talked a lot about it, but not everybody was in that meeting, so.
Yeah. Anybody else on the committee have questions? This is my favorite. I could talk about this all night. I recognize I'm probably alone in that, but what I heard from Sandy is we've got options, and the goal is to return the money to the taxpayers. The question is, what's the best way to do that to not punish the taxpayers in 2 years? That's the ultimate question. So
That's a better thing than my whole 35. But thank you.
any other questions from the committee? Anything from the council? Mr. Mayor, did you have something?
I want to just clarify something, Sandy. You said we would get reimbursed in full. There's a cap of $15 million.
Right.
That $15 million is spread across 3 counties. An example, last year with our schools, they had a deficit because of the veterans tax of $4.5 million. They're probably looking at this assessed value, probably looking at $5 million this year. At $4.5 million, they only received $2.5 million. So it will not be dollar for dollar reimbursed.
Good point.
Thank you.
Any other questions from colleagues on the council? Anybody from the public? Yes, sir, come on up. Before we get started with the public comments, I want to say we're here to listen. We'd love to hear what you'd like to share with us. This meeting is dictated by ordinance, so the ordinance allows 5 minutes. If you could tell us your name and just
Ron
whether or not
Surgat.
you're a resident.
I'm Ron Surgat. I live in 909 Holiday, and I don't appreciate the dumbed down comment, okay? Just so you know, the disabled vets in this county, as I understand it over here, are 17% of St. Clair County. Am I correct in that? 17% of the city, in that case. I have spoken before to the entire city council about the disabled vets. And being a vet myself, I understand the disabled vets. Those who truly deserve it, they deserve it. But when you have people in this town who live in $500,000 houses, $750,000 houses, who are claiming they're disabled vets, and in essence, they are not going ahead and getting a state funded, or like I spoke to one disabled vet this past week who said that, well, the city of O'Fallon does this, they give us a break. No, you don't. It's me. I'm the taxpayer. My taxes went up over $250, 9% last year. And if I read you correctly, I'm looking at another 12% next year by virtue of the multiplier. If that's the case, then fine. My issue here is that disabled vets in Florida, you have to be 100% disabled and you have to meet a means test in order to go ahead and to get a property tax exemption. In this state, you meet 70% and they give you a total exemption. A 70% veterans exemption today for things like sleep apnea, or I got a shoulder injury over here that I had when I played football, but I went into service and I aggravated it. Who can prove that? Nobody can prove that. Disabled vets who deserve it, yes, they should get the break. But somebody who just had a pool put in that $750,000 house, no, they shouldn't be getting full taxes. No taxes being paid by them at all, instead of me having to pay those. That's not fair. You're ripping off and you're scamming the rest of the people in this town. Sleep apnea. You're doggone, I've got a shoulder injury. I have a back injury that I can't prove. Okay, everybody's going to get old and your doggone discs are going to compress. Why don't we go ahead and get with the state, my city, standing up on their own 2 feet and saying, listen, we need means testing. I have disabled vets who have 70% disability, who get full property tax abatement by virtue of me paying for it, and I know they're pulling in $200K a year. 2 of them work for the government, another one's got an outside job. The third person who lives there has got an outside job. For gosh sakes, we go ahead and means test somebody who is 65 years old, somebody who's making $30,000 a year, and what do we do to their property taxes? We freeze them. We don't go ahead and abate them. We don't go ahead and say you don't have to pay at all. We freeze them. We need to do the same thing. This county, if this city, matter of fact, I think has the most people who claim that disability exemption. Why aren't you speaking up to the state and saying, fine, the $24 I get back as an abatement, that's great. You've never done it before. I want my $200 back from last year for people who are scamming the system. I'm about that close. I could have PTSD as well. I'm about that close between those two fingers from coming back from Vietnam. I'm not looking for sympathy. I don't claim any disability, but I've gone online and I've seen what my disability would be, and I laugh. I laugh at what's going on. I go out to the base and I look at there and I take a look at all the disabled vets with the IS on there. They know exactly what they're doing. Every time I go online to look at this thing, first thing that pops up are all kinds of lawyers telling me, hey, I can get you disability, I can get you this, and I can get you that. Come on, it's time to back off. You're going ahead and making people who work hard for their money, who don't make anywhere near what some of these other people who are making, pay for your property taxes. It's not fair. I don't like it. City needs to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments for council? All right. Item, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, we have been up with the state and we've talked to our legislature. We've actually had the Illinois Municipal League try to lobby on our behalf, as well as testified with the military affairs committees. And what we've been told is that once the exemption is in, that there is not really any interest among the legislature to change the exemption law. So the answer that they found was politically palatable was this relief program where the people get the vets get their exemption, but then money is allocated through the budget to provide relief for the taxing bodies that are not receiving the money from the disabled veterans exemption. So they felt that was the best way of getting it through the General Assembly. And we were told that trying to change the means testing or the criteria to becoming disabled was not a winning proposition in the legislature. And so this was their solution to that. And as Sandy mentioned, it was passed as a 5-year pilot, yet it has to be allocated every year, and so far it has not been allocated in the second year. So the mayor may have some other comments. I know he's been in a lot of conversations with our local legislators.
Yeah, the reason it is not palatable across the state, the average is 3 to 3.5%, not 17% that we're seeing. So to most of the other areas, they're not impacted significantly. So that's why there's no real desire to look at it and try to address it. That's why the only chance of getting something back is this program that was to try to rebate some portion, at least, back to those 3 counties that are most heavily impacted. And yes, O'Fallon is by far the most impacted city when it comes to the total dollars across the state.
All right, thank you. Item 3.3 is an update that I'm happy to provide. So Nathan Parchman and myself, we met with the superintendents and members from the various school boards back on October 10th. This is our way to basically keep up with what's going on in each of the taxing bodies. So school districts levy their own taxes, they have their own governing boards, we do the same. They are funded and function very differently. And we went through some things in the city recently where we decided that we should probably be a little bit more intentional in sharing communication with the districts and also receiving information from the districts. So we had a fantastic meeting in this room on the 10th. The idea is to educate the school districts on what the city's plans are, and then hear from them on how they think that might affect them. And then also hear from the school districts how they're being affected and some challenges that they're facing. And the idea is, if we're intentional with our communication, the hope is that we're planting seeds now that will bear fruit down the road. Because if there's a way we can collaborate and pool resources and help each other out 5 to 10 years down the road, that's the goal that we're working towards. So that is the update on that. So 3.4, update on the Resident Assistance Task Force.
Okay, we have two programs for Resident Assistance Task Force. We have one for water and one for Ameren Electric. Both programs were established by the city in fiscal year '23. Each started off with a budget of $25,000. The amount budgeted for the Electric Assistance Program has increased steadily each year based on need. So right now, where we stand as of October 17th, the Water Assistance Program has $21,725 remaining left of their $25,000 budget this year, and the Ameren Electric Assistance Program has $33,408 left of their $65,000 that we budgeted. The county's LIHEAP program, that's the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, is now open for residential assistance, so our local agencies are also providing information to our residents in need utilizing that program as well. So that'll be another opportunity for them.
All righty, that's it. Any questions on that? From the council? From the public? All right, thanks, Robin. Update on the municipal aggregation program. Sandy?
So this is something I'm sure all of our residents have received if they're eligible. So the city is, our old contract with Constellation New Energy ends in December. We had gone out for proposals. Homefield Energy was the lowest supplier proposal we received at a new rate of 0.09054, which are much lower than our current rate at 12.2. So this new program will take effect with your December reading. This is a opt-out program, so if you should have received the letter, there's a yellow card. You can return the card. You can make phone calls to opt out of the program. And again, it's an opt-out program because of back when we started the program in 2012, it was a question on a referendum, and it basically said that the residents of O'Fallon want to participate in this opt-out program. So this goes back to 2012. The referendum stated that. We feel that, again, we're at a 3-cent lower rate than what we currently have with the Constellation New Energy. Ameren's rate currently is a little over 8.1. They are expecting that rate to increase in January. They're expecting it to be maybe 8.6, 8.7, but they don't have a definitive on that yet. So again, opt-out cards were due or are due November 1st. You have 2 months really to decide. We'll know by January what the actual new rate will be with Ameren. They can change anytime they feel like it. They go to the ICC and they say they want more money, and so they can increase the rate. So that's, with this one, it does provide a standard rate, a fixed rate. What is a 6-month contract. For fear we didn't want to get in the same position we did before when we signed a 12.2 contract when Ameren's rate was 12.6, and then they reduced it to the 8. So again, if you have any questions, we have FAQs on our website, or you can contact us, or there's numbers within the website that you can contact if you have questions.
Alrighty. The last 3 items are generally information only. There's a quarterly investment report, the treasurer's report, and then a very detailed administrative committee report. Any comments from staff on that?
No.
Nope. Questions from council? Nope. All right. Well, at this point, we will open the floor up to public comments. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring before the council? All right. Seeing none, we will adjourn, and our next meeting will start What time? 6:30?
6:32.
6:32,
On that clock.
We need a motion to
in 3 minutes. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Ready, Jeff? All right, we'll call the Public Works meeting to order. Roll call, Jeff.
Present.
Myler. Here. Roach. Here. Carney.
Here.
Van Hook. Here. Hudson.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. First item to do is the approval of the minutes. Take a motion.
Make a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Anybody got any comments, questions, concerns? Committee, council, public about the minutes. All those in favor of passing them, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes passed. Thank you. Item 2.1, Jeff.
Yes, item 2.1 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with CBB Transportation for the State Street and Lincoln Avenue traffic study in an amount not to exceed $58,800. So this is a study that we're looking at completing for both corridors of State Street and Lincoln. The State Street corridor, we're looking at analyzing from Ober-Neiferman roundabout and Greenmount to the west, and then out to the Seven Hills roundabout to the east. And then for Lincoln Avenue, the limits would be to the north up at Wesley Drive and to the south at Highway 50. So it's being done for a couple of reasons. First being, we'll talk about it a little later when we get into the CIP, but we have two projects identified in the CIP to do streetscape projects in this downtown area. It's going to involve extensive reconstruction of the roadways, curbs, you name it. So prior to doing that, I think we need to get a better understanding what these intersections, major intersections, these corridors need to look like in the long term, and this is what the study will provide. In addition, taking a second look at the intersection of Highway 50 and Lincoln. Out of the Forward 50 plan, there was a proposal to put a roundabout there potentially. I think more extensive studying needs to be done to that to see what the true impact would be, and that would be accomplished within this study also. So I would recommend approval.
All right, first thing, look for a motion.
So make a motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions, concerns from the committee? Council? Public? All right, roll call.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative.
Mylert.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
Van Hook.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
All right, that will move forward to city council meeting next week.
All right, and 2.2, whenever you're ready.
2.2 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for design engineering services with Gonzalez Companies LLC for the Northern Dancer Lift Station Improvements Project in the amount of $123,800. So this is a construction or a design engineering agreement to redesign the lift station that currently exists on the Stubb Street off of Northern Dancer. So that's in the Cambridge Commons subdivision area. So it's a very small lift station that's really in someone's backyard and in an easement. It has probably the smallest wet well of any of the lift stations we have, meaning it has to constantly just keep turning on pumps and restarting to pump the sewage. So replacing it, we plan on utilizing the Stubb Street that leads to nowhere to rebuild a larger station. At the same time, with this agreement, we're going to do some sewer modeling to determine if the force main that the sewage is pumped through can be redirected in a different direction to help to alleviate some sewer surchargings in other part of the systems. So this whole agreement will include that. It'll be the analysis of the existing sewer system and the redesign of the new lift station with the ultimate plan to budget funds for construction in next fiscal year. So I recommend approval of the agreement.
All right, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns, comments from the committee? Does improving this benefit Brandywine? I mean, is that part of what's driving this, or was this ready to be taken out of somebody's yard anyway?
No, it's further west, so it's west of Lincoln. It's in the Cambridge area, so closer to Greenmount.
I was on the wrong side.
Yeah, so it could benefit the development going on at Pierce, but in addition, it, again, has the most pump starts of any lift station in our entire system. And when you have that, it's just constant turning on pumping. It's just a maintenance issue.
It's due anyway, basically.
Yeah, it is due for replacement.
All right. Council, or, yeah, the rest of the council. Forgot where I left off. Public. Roll call.
Mylert.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Carney.
Yes.
Van Hook.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Rosenberg.
Affirmative.
All right, that agreement will move on to next week's council meeting also. Okay.
All right, and under other business, 3.1.
So other business, we're going to discuss the Public Works Capital Improvement Plan update. So within the capital improvement plan, what you'll see done every year is we'll adjust projects that are currently in the plan. Maybe projects fell behind on engineering, or we've had to allocate funds elsewhere, so we've moved them around. What I'm really going to spend time on talking about now is the 15 new projects that were added to the capital improvement plan. And I'll go through these, do a brief description of each one. The best way to view these is, like Grant mentioned earlier, I'll pull up this tab. So within the Easy View portion of the CIP, it gives you a synopsis of the project, gives some basic location information, description of it, and ultimately what fund it's funded out of and in what amount and what year. So with that, we'll kind of get into these 15. If you have any questions on any of these specifically as I'm going through them, please stop me and ask them, and we'll kind of get into them here. So the first project is the Booster Road improvement. So this is a design that's currently underway. So this will reconstruct Booster Road. It's currently a very narrow roadway. This is the same roadway where Habitat for Humanity has been building new homes on. So the goal is to get this design completed this year and budget funds in next fiscal year to construct it. So as of right now, we're looking at allocating $750,000 into next fiscal year's budget. So,
Can you make those pictures bigger so that we can actually see what you're talking about?
I could try to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Is that helpful? Okay. So yeah, this is Booster Road located off of Hartman Lane. All right. Next project that was added is the Community Park pedestrian median crossing. So this was a project that was identified in the Forward 50 plan. This would provide safe pedestrian crossing across Highway 50 from the community park to the businesses on the south side. Currently, we plan on programming and design of this project in FY27 at $50,000 with a construction program for the following year, FY28, at a cost of $250,000. So these, when I'm throwing these numbers out too, these are really just placeholders. You know, until full design's done, we're not going to know the full construction cost. So these are setting aside dollars to begin the process. As the design moves along, the numbers get more refined, and once, obviously, by the time we get to budget, we'll have a better idea of where they stand. But any questions on that project? It's an at-grade crossing. So the intent would be to add a pedestrian median in the center of the roadway where the bidirectional left turn lane is to make it safer for pedestrians to cross the roadway.
It's a safe haven, like a median, a grass median, it built up in the middle so that you don't have, right.
Okay, so this is one that was interesting because Grant talked about it in administration and must have missed it. So we previously had added the CSX trail. I think it was a 24 project. I put it in here also, so we will clean this up before it gets to council for approval. It'll only be in one location, but it's essentially the same project. It's adding a shared use path along the CSX railroad, essentially from the sports park into downtown. So we will clean up the CIP and only have it located in one spot once it gets to council for approval. Any questions on that project? All right. Next project is the Deer Creek subdivision drainage improvements. So this is a project that is currently a study underway. This study was undertaken due to localized flooding that's occurring in a home located in this area. Study's progressing. As of right now, we're looking at setting a project in the CIP, still not truly knowing what the full extent of that project will be till the study's completed, which we're hoping for by the end of this calendar year. But as of right now, we're looking to add it to CIP, set aside funds within FY27 for $100,000 for engineering, and ultimately construction costs in FY28 at $2 million. Again, like I said previously, until studies done and engineering plans are further refined, we won't really truly know the cost and or even what the scope truly is of the project. But thought it would be appropriate to add it into the CIP at this time. Any questions on that one?
So again, I know we've talked about other drainage issues, and we have some in Ward 4 in particular. Why, and I'm not saying don't do this, by the way. All I'm saying is, why aren't we addressing some of those other ones?
So this project specifically is being addressed because there's flooding that's occurring at a home within the study limits. And when we talked back in March and we talked about establishing the priorities of our stormwater projects, the #1 criteria was homes or structures that are flooded. So that is happening at this location. Can pull up a photo right now that will show water up to the top of a coffee table in someone's basement, you know. So that's why this moved forward as quickly as it has and why it's being studied currently. The areas you're referencing, Ward 4, I'm not familiar with any flooding that's occurring there that would warrant it being, you know, moved up, if you will, in the criteria. But that's why this project specifically has progressed as it has.
All right, thank you.
Step up to the mic, please.
We didn't do that.
Well, you please do.
I'll wait till the end.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Vern had his hand up.
Do you want to step, or you can wait till public comment? Your choice. All right.
Vern Ware, Ward 3, which didn't start the clock me while I was walking up. My question was on the the last one, I did miss it because I didn't get up in time, okay? It's the number 3 on your hit list about the CSX sharing of the use of passage. So you're bumping that one up, which you already had on the list here, from 28 and 29, which totals $2,200,000. So you're moving that up now over into 26 and I guess 27.
It's in 28 and 29 is.
Yeah, you move, but you put it on your hit list to get it done now, right?
No, it's not on for right now. It's
It's on his
28
top 15 list. He had it.
Yeah. So the item Grant spoke about in administration earlier, I think it had it at the very end, maybe 2030. This new item that's been added, it's the same project, but it's been up to the engineering in FY '28 with construction in FY '29.
Okay,
If
so
we're even
it's
able
not
to do it.
changing
Yeah.
anything now, not bumping, okay. That's just ask.
But yeah, that'll get cleaned up before it goes to council.
Still got to get through the railroad.
Yes. All right. Next project that was at the CIP is Elizabeth Drive drainage study. So speaks to another drainage project that is being brought forward due to flooding of homes. So in May, we had a large storm event. Homes located at 1114 and 1102 Elizabeth Drive were flooded during that rain event. In addition, pool located at 1025 was completely inundated and flooded. So the plan with this CIP item is just a study at this point to analyze the existing storm sewer system in the area, determine if improvements could be done to prevent this flooding. In addition to flooding of structures and a residence pool, the low point on Elizabeth Drive floods so bad that the roadway's impassable, that you just cannot drive a vehicle through it. So we have records and photos of those incidences also. So looking at moving forward a drainage study that would be planned to be programmed next fiscal year at a cost of $50,000.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jeff, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
With these drainage studies, what about the home on West Washington, that house flooded back this summer? Where would that fit into, I mean, is that something that's in the study as well?
So that one, I'm looking at trying to do some modification on the existing State Street drainage study that's currently designed. We're working through property acquisition. There's funds budgeted to build it this year. I think modifications can be done with that to help alleviate that issue. Yep. Yep, sure.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Next project is the West State Street and Obernieferman Road resurfacing. So this would resurface Obernieferman Road from Porter all the way down to State and resurface State Street from Highway 50 to the CSX railroad track crossing. So we were able to acquire a federal surface transportation grant in the amount of $586,400 to complete this project. We are currently going through the design process, anticipated either occurring next summer or potentially the summer after, for a total cost of $750,000. So the plan would be to budget for next year. If we can get plans done quick enough, hopefully we can get it done. If not, it gets pushed one summer potentially.
How much did you say that grant was for?
$586,400.
Thanks.
So typically those can fund right at about 75% of the construction cost. Next project is the West Highway 50 shared use path. This was a project that came out of the Forward 50 plan. This would provide a shared use path from Community Park west to Greenmount Road along the north side of Highway 50. This one's pushed out a little further. There's an east shared use path that has been in the CIP that we're working towards. We put in an ITEP grant. This would be a phase further down the road. Right now, the way it's put in the CIP is funding within FY '29 and FY '30, so towards the end of this 5-year plan currently. Moving on.
Next, we're looking at adding is a full sanitary sewer model of our sewer collection system. So I talked a little bit earlier in the proposal, we're moving forward for the Northern Dancer lift station of doing a sewer model on portions of our system. What we really need to do is a more comprehensive full model of our entire system that looks at their gravity sewer lines and how it conveys all this sanitary sewage out to our treatment plant, how the lift stations operate. Within the CIP, you'll see multiple projects where we're getting ready to replace the 2 main trunk sewer lines that convey all the sewer from the city out towards our treatment plant. What we need to make sure if we're making that significant investment, you know, tens of millions of dollars, that we're putting in the right size pipes and it's analyzed correctly. So my goal is to bring forward and budget for funds in the next fiscal year to build out a full model of our entire sanitary sewer system. We currently have one of our water system hydraulically, but there is not one that currently exists for a sewer system. Next project is a wastewater treatment stream bank stabilization project. So this is a project that's actually been under construction for a little while, actually going almost 2 years, but we are working with the Corps of Engineers. There were federal funds allocated to help us to armor that bank of Silver Creek adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant lagoons. A project of similar nature was done, I want to say 15 to 20 years ago on the portion just north of this, so we'd be continuing that design and essentially going to be armoring and rip-wrapping that bank to prevent any erosion that could impact those lagoons at the plant. Right now, we're looking to program funds for that next year for construction at a cost of $350,000. Another project planned at the wastewater treatment plant is the replacement of our electrical substation. So this was the substation that was put in when the original package plants were put in out at the plant. We just got finished with our most recent sewer plant upgrade. We utilized connecting into some of this system to provide power to the new devices. The electrician out there at the time said, "Yeah, you guys probably really need to look at this." So it's definitely reached its end of life, so we're looking at completely replacing that substation, which is owned by the city. So it's, you know, it's not something that Ameren comes in and can do for us. We have to pay for it, do it, and provide contractors that are certified through Ameren to perform the work. So in total, we're looking at a cost of $250,000 in next fiscal year.
There's no way to get any kind of Ameren buy-in or grant or anything since it's...
So there isn't to replace that. What we have been looking into and continue to look into is potentially providing some sort of solar system out at the plant to help offset some of the electrical cost. Walter and I are actually just talking about it today on how we can get to that point if we're going out and requesting proposals from different solar companies on how we can do it, but there are credits out there for that type of approach, which we are currently looking into.
Do the cities normally maintain substations?
So when it is specifically for like an industrial facility like that, yes.
They do.
Yeah, so we have spare transformers that if a transformer goes bad, we can switch it out, and you know, it is common that it's on that owner of that facility to maintain those.
Gotcha, thank you.
Another item that's added to the CIP is the lift station control panel replacement program. Similar to the Northern Dancer lift station, a lot of our lift stations are getting up there in age. The control systems used to operate them are becoming obsolete. It's harder and harder to find replacement parts. You know, and so we're to the point now we need to start phasing in replacement of these control panels. So what we're showing here is over the next 5 years, allocating $100,000 each year to go in and systematically replace these panels throughout the entire system. And we're looking at roughly 14 different lift stations needs to be done on. So just a way to keep our system up to date, functioning, and able to operate efficiently. Another similar one on the wastewater side, so terminal lift station pump replacement. So I talked about the north and the south trunk lines that convey all the sewage out to the wastewater treatment plant. Those just flow by gravity. They're laid underground at a slope, conveyed out there. Takes it to our terminal lift station. That then has to be pumped up to the head of the plant to be treated. So these terminal lift station pumps have been in place since the original, the larger plant upgrade that was done back in the 90s. And so it's time, as these pumps wear out, we need to replace them. So this is a replacement of those pumps and allows us to have purchased a spare one for redundancy. If one were to fail, we could replace it. So looking at budgeting $100,000 in next fiscal year for that project. Pierce Boulevard traffic calming. This is a project that is also currently in design. We talked about it a few meetings ago. Current approach is to narrow Pierce Boulevard, add a shared use path on the south side, and strategically place speed humps along the corridor. The primary goal is to help to control the speeds along the roadway. When study was done in conjunction with the Pierce development, found that excessive amount of speeding does occur in that area, so we're hoping to help improve that with this project. I am happy to announce we did just receive a $300,000 grant from the Metro East Parks and Rec District for the trail portion of it. So that will help fund a portion of it. In total, we are looking at allocating $2 million into the FY26 budget. Again, placeholder at this point, design's not far enough along to truly know the cost, but I wanted to add that in the CIP. And these next two are both north trunk main replacement phases. Talked about these already. These are the north line is an old corrugated metal pipe that's been in place for decades. We're needing to replace it in certain locations. So the phase one runs roughly from Scott Troy Road east behind the Braeswood subdivision. And then phase two, go to the next page here, is further west of that from Seven Hills Road heading east to Janita Drive. So that would be two separate phases. Right now, we're pushing those further out in the CIP. The phase one, looking at engineering in FY28, construction in 29, and phase two would be engineering in 29, construction in 30. So that is all 15 of the projects that were added. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for those or any others on the CIP.
Any questions from the committee? Council? Mr. Mayor?
Jeff, you may want to emphasize the need for those replacement on some of these sewer lines that you pointed out, of what we've found with the replacements that have been done as to the flow of water that was coming into the old lines that were so in bad shape.
Yeah.
And what we're now seeing a sharp decrease in the flow of water to the system.
Yeah, the mayor mentioned doing these large replacement projects, especially on these trunk lines and the age they are, will help really reduce our infiltration that's coming into the system, which will only benefit us long-term for the operation of the treatment plant. In addition, I didn't mention it, but it's been in the CIP for years, is our sewer lining program. We've gone in and lined a number of the sewer mains within some of the older areas of town where there's clay lines. That's helped tremendously on infiltration also. So yeah, any improvement we can do to it to tighten up that system, make it more watertight, is going to improve the operation of it and all, overall.
Any others from the council? Public?
I'm Karen Pfeiffer. I live on Deer Creek Road. We're in Ward 2. Can you put that last picture back up when you're talking about the trunk lines, please?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about along Angle Creek here, correct?
Correct.
And you're replacing what trunk lines? You said they're corrugated metal?
Yeah, so it's our sanitary sewer trunk line.
Is corrugated metal.
It's corrugated metal that's rubber lined. Yes.
So does that continue off across Seven Hills Road into the Deer Creek subdivision, that it's also the same?
Yes, it continues west of there
So
also.
why are you going out here where it's pretty much way out in the country rather than fixing what's already behind our houses? Because what we're seeing is as that creek is eroding, it erodes underneath the trees fall, they take the land with, and that sewer line is running through my backyard. And I believe you're the one that told me that you would not do anything until my yard is gone and that sewer line is exposed. So I want to know why you're going out there where nobody's at, other than some trees and maybe there's a couple houses out there. But they're not in the city.
So the reason we would work in that direction is you want to work from the downstream and work your way up. So as I mentioned with the model,
Okay.
when we're replacing this, we're not just putting in the exact same size pipe. We're looking at expanding it to provide additional capacity. What we can't do is to go upstream, put in a bigger pipe, and then reduce it down to a smaller pipe. So we're working from our downstream end and working our way up.
Okay, I want that noted. Everybody note that. Because as you've worked stormwater, you have come down to this end of town. All of that flows into Angle Creek, and you've had all these improvements down here. You've done nothing where you're studying for at least the third, fourth, fifth time that I know of, the Angle Creek area where Deer Creek Road's bridge is the bottleneck. So you have just said the opposite of what you guys have been doing for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, the storm sewer and sanitary is completely different. And
Okay, I understand that, I understand that. But when you're talking about water flow, it's the same thing.
If you're going to ask a question, let him finish, answer before you.
I have no more comments.
Thank you.
Any others?
Dave Pfeiffer, 801 Deer Creek Road. I'm her husband. For the comment about the urgency, you know, Mary Coleman flooded for the first time 30 years ago. And for the city have made a comment that they didn't know that Mary Coleman flooded is just incredible. And since then, she flooded 4 more times, one a year and a half ago, and she's still in danger of flooding a 5th time. Again, we've got the Deer Creek subdivision drainage program. This isn't Deer Creek subdivision drainage, this is Angle Creek drainage. Angle Creek is the one that's increased the base flood elevation by 7 feet. There's an 11-foot drop-off at Seven Hills Road, which causes the bottleneck that my wife addressed. It causes us to have a detention basin essentially in our backyards. It's what has caused the erosion. It's Angle Creek. It's what erodes, and we are protecting your sewer line. We are the people that protect your sewer line. And we have put in thousands and thousands of dollars to protect your sewer line, and you won't even address the problem. And we still have the flooding concern. It's the Angle Creek watershed, that's the problem. Please, read a map. This isn't Deer Creek subdivision. The water drains through Angle Creek. Thank you.
You're welcome. You want to step up to the mic, please?
Will there be comments at the end?
Yes, there will be comments at the end. All right, was that the end of what you have for the?
Yes, that was everything I was sharing on the CIP.
Now, public comments.
Hi, I'm Ron Surgott. I live at 909, and I've calmed down, Jeff, just so you know, from the last one. I knew there was supposed to be a community development meeting tonight, but apparently that got canceled. But I'm glad to see the chairman's here, my alderman. So these comments go to both of them. I was thinking about when I was here the last time and I spoke about the creek behind my house, the unnamed tributary behind my house, and the fact that the stormwater there could go ahead and be handled by Todd's committee. And I said, wait a second here. Somehow, stormwater is Public Works and capital improvement. And I kept asking myself, what could Public Works do? And what I'm asking for is just an inspection of the creek, of that unnamed tributary. It's all I'm asking for. If in fact there was an inspection, you would have seen, especially in the end of July, when you had that large storm event that came through here, you would have seen that there were 10-inch in diameter trees that were laying across the culvert that was there. To Public Works' credit, they came out there the same day that I called, to their credit. But the problem was, it wasn't until 12 days later that they told me that they would go ahead and take the trees out of there. There was another tree laying right next to it on the bank that could have just as easily plugged up that culvert. And the water at that time was within a foot of going over the top of the culvert. I was there, I saw it. I said, well, Mom, oh hell, wow, this is amazing. If in fact they'd have done that, they'd have seen it. Now, if Public Works had done an inspection on it, a periodic inspection is what I'm asking for, they would see that one of the drainage culverts between, I think it's 914 Monterey, is partially blocked by the concrete that's been thrown over the side of the bank by the homeowner or whoever she had fix her pool that was destroyed by guys who didn't know how to drop a tree. If Public Works was walking that creek, they would see that the 24-inch culvert, which empties out directly across my property, right behind 906 Monterey, is falling apart. It's got holes in it. It's got holes. You can see the holes from where I am, probably eroding the soil out somewhere up the stream bed. If Public Works was walking that creek, they would see that the 15 to 20 tons of riprap that was dumped off of Jamestown to the east of the Jamestown Bridge there where they put the two culverts in, they would see that that has gone ahead and just piled up in the middle of the creek and has gone ahead and created a 30-foot wide creek, which is 10 feet wider and is dug out both sides of the bank. It's 10 feet wider than the norm of the creek, and in essence, it is about 15 feet to 20 feet wider than what the creek was when I first got here. The creek actually is about 12 to 14 feet across. I have fought to go ahead and keep my property intact. You can see the original creek bank. I have had to go ahead and fight my neighbor's riprap, and I don't think riprap is a native stone to Holiday Drive. My point is that I have gone ahead and taken out about 5 tons of riprap, city riprap and neighbor's riprap that has gone ahead and pressurized my side of the bank by virtue of them putting it in, not accordance with the permit. And nobody in the city that I know of came out and inspected that rock, nor did the Corps of Engineers. When people go ahead and do things, they just do it. I believe, in my last 15 seconds here, I believe that nobody owns a waterway. I think that the city has a responsibility to people who live on both sides of that. And just because you throw riprap and you put pressure on the other landowner to go ahead and it rips their land out, I don't think that's fair. Either Public Works needs to be looking at it or community development. Thank you.
Can we get somebody to just take a look?
I mean, the one thing we have to be mindful of is entering onto private property.
Right.
So I know from a code enforcement perspective, we cannot enter onto private property and for the means of doing code enforcement. So if there's a blockage that something needs to be addressed and we're gonna cite someone for not maintaining their property, we can't just enter onto their property our own without doing it, unless we're invited to by that resident to come into their backyard. So we have to be careful from that aspect. You know, as far as city infrastructure, Ron referenced a couple of pipes that exist. I mean, the city is required to go out and do inspections on outfalls of our own storm sewer system, so that can be looked at and done. But the extent of the entire drainage way.
But if we can start with the piping that is maybe damaged.
Yeah.
And maybe it's community development, but if somebody is improperly using riprap, is that a code enforcement thing, or is that, I mean, where does that fall? And can we, I mean, if he invited us onto his property to take a look, if we could see it from there.
Yeah. So the code really, probably Chad or someone, a building code official, would be more well-versed to talk about this, but there's nuisance violations within the code, and one of them talks about stagnant water. And if there's stagnant water on a property, so if a creek's completely blocked where there's no flow whatsoever and it's creating stagnant water, then that could be deemed a nuisance. What we go out there, and what I've seen in most cases, is it's not completely blocked. You know, there's still water moving through it, so then that creates a difficult situation where you can't really go the code enforcement route in that case.
So is there no easement then along any of these drainage ways?
I'd have to review the final plats for these specific subdivisions to determine that.
If there was an easement, can we access the easement then?
Yeah, so I mean, there should be easements for our storm sewer infrastructure. Whether or not there's one for the specific like drainage way across the whole length, I'd have to pull the plats and determine that.
Okay. But if there was, then in theory, we could walk without permission
I believe so. I'd want to get that clarified, probably.
Sure.
With city attorney or, you know.
All right. Any other public comments?
Dave Pfeiffer again. I appreciate the fact that they came out and helped with your trees. We've asked for years for the city to come out and help with some of the trees that have fallen across that do create a huge blockage across. We had a civil engineer here about a year and a half ago that requested help when we had a huge tree fall across. We've had probably, I don't know how many, dozens of trees that have blocked. We're talking 2-3 foot diameter trees, and we do not get any help from the city. We maintain your stormwater system. We've invited you to come back many times. I've had engineers show up once, okay? So please, you talk about stagnation. This creek is now dug so far underneath the down areas that we have stagnant water now in the creeks in areas. So that causes a problem. So this is an issue that you guys have just ignored for 30 years. So please, it's time.
Vern.
Started the clock before I got up here. Here we go again. Vern Moller, Ward 3. In regards to your paperwork that you presented and whatever, your trunk main replacement phase 1. In your 2028, you have a list for $2,100,000. Now it's been changed to $100,000. In 2029, you have it listed at $27 million. Now it's down to $2 million. So you have $2,100,000 instead of a 5-year total of $29,100,000. So I guess we got a bargain on something there. Is that correct? I mean, I'm looking at your papers.
I'm not looking at what you're looking at.
Yeah, so here, I'm on the website right now. You're referencing the north trunk line replacement phase 1 and phase 2?
I just printed it up this morning, this afternoon.
So for the phase 1, I'm showing $100,000 allocated in FY '28 and $2 million in '29. And for Phase 2, I'm showing 100,000 allocated in '29 with 2 million in FY '30.
Yeah, but this was printed, I printed this off 2 weeks ago when you, I guess you updated it, correct?
It may have been updated.
Okay, then, let's go to your cover page from 10/28/24, that's today, correct?
Okay.
Compared to 10/14/24. So there should have been a difference in dollar bill amounts. I mean, it came down, you had projected in 10/14, 176 million and change. Now in 10/28, I know we got a break, you're down to 146 million and change. So you got a difference of roughly $30,000. But why, I mean, I printed this up last week on the other portion there was at the 27 million on that item. So you readdressed it?
I think there was a typo in that item that was caught before it came to the committee for discussion.
Okay, so that was a typographical?
Yep, I
Okay.
think so.
But I just had it printed out last week, 2 weeks ago. When it was.
Sure, yep.
So that's where it's at. Okay, all right. just
Yeah, that's
one.
again why we're trying to clean it up before it goes
Okay.
to the full council for approval.
Any other public comments? All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion. Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.